This is Gaza, its streets, its people, its past, and its future. A place that has seen the worst of humanity, but also the best. A land torn apart by conflict, but never broken by it. Today, we take a journey along the path that many families in Gaza are walking returning from the south, making their way back to the north. Their homes, their lives, their memories, all left behind, for now. But they are coming back, ready to rebuild, ready to reclaim what was lost. The journey from the south to the north of Gaza is not just about geography. It's about a return to home, to family, to the places that once held memories. These roads, these pathways, are the lifelines that connect the scattered parts of Gaza, bringing people back to where their lives were once centered. For months, families fled their homes, taking refuge in the southern regions, away from the front lines. Now, as the dust of conflict settles, they are coming back, one step at a time. As we walk through these streets, we see the faces of those who have made this difficult journey, young and old, some carrying children, others carrying bags, all carrying the weight of their experiences. Their journey is not easy. The roads are rough. The heat is relentless. Yet each footstep marks a victory over fear, over displacement, and over the long months of uncertainty. These faces tell the story of Gaza in a way that words cannot. Tired, yes, but also resolute. The resilience of the people here is unshakable, etched into every wrinkle, every gaze, every step forward. They have seen more than most could imagine, yet they continue to push forward, driven by the hope that one day Gaza will be rebuilt, that their homes will stand once more. As we walk with them, we see the quiet strength that defines this land. There is no grand speech, no dramatic overture, just the simple act of returning, of coming back to a place where memories linger in the air and where a new future, no matter how uncertain, awaits. The road to the north is not an easy one. It is a harsh, unforgiving path. The once paved roads are now cracked and uneven, filled with the debris of a conflict that has taken everything from these families. And yet, amidst it all, there is a sense of purpose in their movements. Every step taken on this road is a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. It is not a journey of mere survival, but one of defiance. Defiance against the forces that tried to tear Gaza apart, and against the idea that this land could be broken. These people, their faces tired but hopeful, are walking back to the very places that were once destroyed places they plan to rebuild, not just with bricks, but with the strength of their community and their unwavering hope. As we move through the northern areas of Gaza, we come face to face with the remnants of what once was. These homes, these streets, these landmarks once full of life are now silent. The buildings that housed families, the schools where children played, the markets that once bustled with activity, all reduced to rubble. What is left is a testament to the violence that has torn through this land. For those returning, the sight of these ruins is both heartbreaking and motivating. They know that what was lost cannot be replaced, but it can be rebuilt, and so they return, not with the expectation that everything will be the same, but with the understanding that the work of rebuilding begins with them. With each brick they lay, with each piece of rubble cleared, they are slowly reclaiming their future. For those returning to the north, there is a sense of both loss and renewal. Many families return to homes that no longer exist, to places where memories have been erased by the destruction of war. Yet they return nonetheless, because for them, this is the land of their ancestors, the place that holds their identity. This is the land where their roots are. These are the streets where they grew up, the homes they once shared with family, friends, and neighbors. There is something indescribable about this connection, something that draws them back, even when faced with the uncertainty of what awaits. They know that the road ahead will be difficult, but it is their road. It is the road home. The act of rebuilding is not just physical, it is deeply emotional, a communal effort to reclaim the pieces of a shattered life. Here, the people of Gaza are not working alone. They are working together, sharing what little they have, offering support to neighbors and strangers alike. In every community, from the smallest village to the largest town, there is a shared understanding that survival depends on solidarity. The work is not easy. Supplies are scarce, and the damage is widespread, but there is no time to wait for outside aid. These families know that the future of Gaza lies in their hands, and so they rebuild. One brick at a time, one wall at a time, one home at a time. It is slow work, but it is necessary work. The future of Gaza may be uncertain, but the people here are certain of one thing. They will not give up. They will rebuild their homes, their communities, and their futures. It is this unwavering spirit that will carry them forward, no matter what challenges lie ahead. Each step forward carries the weight of the past. Displacement is never just about geography. It's about identity, about losing the place where your memories were made. For many, this walk back to the north is not just a return home, but a reckoning with what has been lost. They carry bags, but they also carry the invisible weight of sorrow, of uncertainty, and yet they keep walking. And among them are the elderly, those who have seen Gaza change through the decades, who remember times of peace and times of war. Their eyes tell the longest stories. For them, this return is not just about today. It is about generations past and generations to come. And among them are the elderly, those who have seen Gaza change through the decades, who remember times of peace and times of war. Their eyes tell the longest stories. For them, this return is not just about today. It is about generations past and generations to come. Children laugh as they walk, oblivious in some ways to the full weight of their journey. But childhood in Gaza is different. It is a childhood shaped by airstrikes instead of bedtime stories, by the sound of drones instead of lullabies. And yet, they find ways to play, to dream, to believe that tomorrow might be better. Despite everything, their laughter still fills the air. It is proof that even in war, innocence finds a way to survive. These children are not just witnesses to history, they are its next chapter. Returning home should be a joyful moment. But for many in Gaza, returning is not about unlocking a door and stepping inside. It is about finding where a home once stood, about searching the debris for anything that can be saved. Some find nothing. They stare at empty spaces where their homes once stood, whispering names, remembering birthdays, holidays, and ordinary days that were once filled with life. The hardest part of war is not just the destruction, it's learning to live with what's gone. This land has always known struggle. Gaza is ancient. It has stood at the crossroads of civilizations for thousands of years. The pharaohs ruled here, followed by the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans. The sands of Gaza have felt the footsteps of empires, each leaving their mark, each believing they could control its fate. But Gaza has outlived them all. From the Islamic caliphates to the Crusaders, from Ottoman rule to British occupation, Gaza has been both a gateway and a battlefield. And yet, through every conquest, every war, people have lived here, loved here, built homes and planted trees, believing in the promise of tomorrow. Today's destruction is just another chapter in a long, painful history. But if the past has taught us anything, it is that Gaza does not disappear. It endures, it rebuilds, it remembers. Rebuilding is not just about brick and mortar. It is about reclaiming life. Even before the dust settles, the people of Gaza begin to rebuild, not because they have forgotten, but because they refuse to surrender to despair. This sense of unity is not new, it is woven into the fabric of Palestinian culture. It is what has kept Gaza standing through decades of hardship, and it is what will help it rise again. As the sun sets over Gaza, the question remains, what comes next? Can there be peace? Can this be the last time families are forced to flee, to rebuild, to start over? For now, there are no guarantees. But one thing is certain, the people of Gaza will not stop dreaming. They dream of classrooms filled with children instead of ruins. They dream of beaches where the sound of waves is louder than the sound of war. They dream of a Gaza where home is permanent, where no one has to walk this road of return ever again. Until that day comes, they keep moving forward one step at a time, one brick at a time, one dream at a time. Gaza's history stretches back thousands of years, making it one of the oldest inhabited cities in the world. Archaeological evidence suggests that people lived here as early as the 15th century BCE, during the time of the ancient Canaanites. Located at a strategic crossroads between Africa and Asia, Gaza has always been a key trade hub, connecting Egypt, the Levant, and Mesopotamia. The Egyptians were among the first great powers to rule Gaza, seeing it as a crucial outpost for their empire. Later, the Philistines settled here, giving the region a name that still echoes in historical texts. Gaza was one of their 5 great cities alongside Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, forming a powerful confederation that challenged ancient Israelite kingdoms. By the 6th century BCE, Gaza had fallen under Persian rule, becoming an important stop along the royal roads that connected the vast Achaemenid Empire. But perhaps one of the most dramatic moments in its history came in 332 BCE, when Alexander the Great besieged the city for 2 months. Gaza's resistance was fierce, but in the end it fell to the Greeks, marking the start of Hellenistic influence. Under Greek and later Roman rule, Gaza flourished as a center of learning and commerce. The city became famous for its philosophical schools, its thriving trade in spices and textiles, and its role as a gateway to the Arabian Peninsula. Roman writers even called Gaza the jewel of the desert, reflecting its prosperity at the time. With the arrival of Islam in the 7th century CE, Gaza became a key city in the growing Muslim world. The Rashidun Caliphate, led by the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, brought Islam to the region, and the city soon became a center of religious scholarship. One of Islam's greatest legal scholars, Imam al-Shafi'i, was born in Gaza in 767 CE, and his teachings still influence Islamic law today. Throughout the medieval period, different Muslim dynasties controlled Gaza, from the Umayyads and Abbasids to the Fatimids and Mamluks. During these centuries, the city witnessed waves of prosperity and hardship, often depending on who ruled the surrounding lands. But despite political changes, Gaza remained a key link in trade and culture between Egypt, Syria, and beyond. The Crusades brought war to Gaza once again in the 12th century, as Christian and Muslim armies fought for control of the Holy Land. The famous Muslim general Saladin reclaimed Gaza from the Crusaders in 1187, reinforcing its position as an important city in the Islamic world. By the 16th century, Gaza became part of the Ottoman Empire, under which it remained for nearly 400 years. The Ottomans invested in the city's markets, mosques, and roads, making it a key administrative center for the region. However, as Ottoman power declined, so did Gaza's fortunes, setting the stage for further conflict in the 20th century. Following World War I, the British took control of Palestine, including Gaza, as part of the British Mandate. This period saw growing tensions between different communities, as well as the increasing presence of Zionist settlements, which would later lead to the partition of Palestine and the wars that followed. The year 1948 was a turning point for Gaza, as it was for all of Palestine. With the creation of the State of Israel and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, Gaza became a place of refuge. Over 200,000 Palestinian refugees arrived in the small strip, nearly doubling its population overnight. From 1948 to 1967, Gaza was administered by Egypt, but in the aftermath of the Six-Day War, Israel occupied the Strip, marking the beginning of decades of military rule, settlement expansion, and periodic conflict. The Palestinian resistance grew during these years, culminating in the First Intifada in 1987, a popular uprising against Israeli occupation. The signing of the Oslo Accords in 1993 brought temporary hope, leading to the creation of the Palestinian Authority and partial self-governance in Gaza. However, the following years saw continued tension, blockades, and military offensives, shaping the reality that Gazans live with today. Today, Gaza is one of the most densely populated areas in the world, with over 2 million people living in just 365 square kilometers. It has faced repeated wars, economic blockades, and humanitarian crises, making daily life a struggle for survival. Electricity shortages, restricted access to clean water, and limited medical supplies are part of life here. More than 80% of Gaza's population relies on humanitarian aid, and unemployment rates are among the highest in the world. Yet, despite these hardships, the people of Gaza continue to resist through education, culture, and perseverance. Gaza is often described in numbers, casualties, poverty rates, square footage. But beyond these statistics, it is a place full of life. It is the home of poets and painters, teachers and students, farmers and fishermen. It is a land that refuses to be defined by war alone. As we walk through the streets of Gaza, we are walking through history itself, a history filled with struggle, but also with strength. Every stone here has a story, every alleyway holds a memory, and every person here carries the hope that one day peace will come. The future of Gaza remains unwritten. Will it continue to be a land under siege, or will it finally be a land of freedom? That answer is not just in the hands of its people, but in the hands of the world. Until that day, the people of Gaza will keep living, keep dreaming, and keep walking forward step by step toward a better tomorrow. The latest war has left Gaza in ruins. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble. Streets once filled with life now bear the scars of relentless airstrikes. Homes, schools, hospitals, no place was spared. Families who lived in the same houses for generations found themselves homeless overnight, forced to take shelter in makeshift tents or overcrowded schools. Every corner of this city tells a story of loss, but also of survival. Beyond the physical destruction, the human toll is immeasurable. Thousands of lives were lost, many of them women and children. Families were wiped out in an instant. Survivors carry not only the wounds of war, but the grief of losing loved ones. The war has left behind a generation of orphans, children who have seen more devastation in their short lives than most people will in a lifetime. Gaza's healthcare system, already fragile, has been pushed to the brink. Hospitals that were struggling under years of blockade have now been overwhelmed with casualties. With shortages of medicine, electricity, and medical supplies, doctors and nurses have been working under impossible conditions, forced to treat patients with whatever resources they can find. The war didn't just destroy buildings, it destroyed livelihoods. Gaza's economy, already battered by years of blockade, has collapsed even further. Shops and factories were flattened, businesses destroyed. Fishermen can no longer take to the sea freely, and farmers struggle to access their land. With unemployment soaring above 80%, most families now rely entirely on humanitarian aid just to survive. Even basic necessities, food, water, and electricity, are scarce. The war has left deep psychological scars on the people of Gaza. Children wake up screaming from nightmares, afraid that the bombs will fall again. Parents live with constant anxiety, unsure of what the future holds. Mental health services are almost non-existent, yet the need for them has never been greater. But even in this darkness, resilience shines through. Gaza's people refuse to be broken, holding on to hope in the face of unimaginable hardship. The war didn't just take lives, it erased history. Ancient mosques, historic markets, and libraries holding generations of knowledge have been reduced to rubble. The destruction of Gaza's cultural heritage is a loss not only for Palestinians, but for humanity. Landmarks that stood for centuries have been lost in seconds, taking with them stories that can never be recovered. Many of Gaza's schools were turned into shelters during the war, but even these were not safe. Bombs tore through classrooms, leaving behind shattered desks and torn notebooks. For Gaza's children, education has always been a form of resistance, a way to dream of a better future. But now, thousands of students have nowhere to study. The war has stolen not just their homes, but their right to learn, pushing an already struggling education system to the edge. Higher education has always been a source of pride in Gaza, with students excelling in science, engineering, and medicine despite the odds. But the war has left university buildings and ruined lecture halls turned into rubble, laboratories destroyed. Yet, despite this devastation, professors and students continue to push forward, holding lessons in makeshift classrooms and online. Even in the face of destruction, the thirst for knowledge remains unbreakable. Before the war, Gaza's farmlands provided fresh produce not only for local families but for export. Now those fields are scorched, irrigation systems destroyed, and farmers unable to work their land. Olive trees, some hundreds of years old, have been uprooted, erasing generations of hard work. The destruction of agriculture means that Gaza's food crisis has deepened, forcing more families to rely on aid just to eat. For generations, Gaza's fishermen have braved the sea to provide for their families. But the war has damaged boats, docks, and fish markets, making it nearly impossible to earn a living. Even before the conflict, restrictions on fishing zones made life difficult. Now, the industry is on the verge of collapse. With each passing day, Gaza's connection to the sea becomes weaker, and another lifeline for survival fades away. The war has made an already dire situation worse. Water and electricity are now almost non-existent in Gaza. Bombings have destroyed water treatment facilities, leaving families with only a few hours of access to clean water each week. Power outages have become a way of life, with hospitals relying on failing generators to keep patients alive. In the dark, people wait hoping that someday the most basic necessities of life will no longer be a privilege, but a right. The war forced over 1 million people to flee their homes, creating one of the worst displacement crises Gaza has ever seen. Families were torn apart, some unable to return, others returning to nothing but rubble. Shelters are overcrowded, makeshift tents fill the streets, and those who lost everything are left wondering, when will they have a home again? With businesses destroyed and industries wiped out, Gaza's economy has been left in ruins. Shops that once bustled with activity now stand abandoned, their shelves empty. Thousands of workers have lost their jobs, with no way to support their families. Even those who still have businesses struggle to import goods due to the blockade. The war has not only taken lives, it has taken livelihoods, pushing Gaza further into economic despair. Gaza is not just a place of destruction, it is a symbol of resilience. Its people endure, rebuild, and hope despite unimaginable hardship. As long as they stand and tell their stories, Gaza will never be forgotten.